Welcome to Creating Resiliency. We are here today because we wish to have you know that in order to create resiliency, you need to be present. We need you to be fully present. We need you to be here with us and without us. So, if you're joining us today, thank you for doing so. And please let us know in the comments how you create resiliency in your life, what you need to do more of to create resiliency. And we have a special guest, thanks to Paige today. So, our guest will be coming on in 25 minutes to 30 minutes, and then she'll take over and she'll do her presentation. In the meantime, let me introduce the members of the panel, and we will go first to Paige. Let us know, Paige, why you decided today you wanted to do something about composting.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm known as the Ego Private Eye, bringing you a close-up look to how you can reduce and compost and have less waste in your lives. So, very important to compost your scraps. It's very important to do your best to go zero waste on your food scraps and in your life. And I'm here to bring you tips today and always. Thanks for joining us.
Wonderful. Okay, Lisa, you're next.
I am a newbie to composting, and I am super excited to learn how I can do that because I know it's going to really help in terms of our earth that we live on. And so I'm thrilled to learn more about it today. Thank you.
Wonderful. And Vanessa, you are next up, please.
I love composting. We have been composting, I would say, for maybe 10 years now. And I have an enormous composter where I put all our organic fruits and vegetables. And I just have a little container on my kitchen sink. And I know Paige is going to show you hers shortly because she's the queen of show and tell. And I put all the scraps every few days. We dump it into the compost and get such lovely, rich, nutritious soil that I actually plant a lot of things in. I plant new fruits and vegetables in it. So it's just this whole cycle of life continuing on, no waste. Everything either goes in my tummy or one of our tummies here or on in the compost pile. So I'm excited to learn new tips from our guest. Really happy to be talking about compost.
Okay, so Paige, will you tell us something about our special guest today, please?
Oh, sure. Yes. Sure. Cecilie Stuart heads up what's called Full Circle Composting out of Topanga Canyon in Los Angeles area. And she also has an impressive background in dance and theater. In fact, she taught my kids through her dance activism program for several years. And we would do all kinds of really great performances, including we were on the front lines promoting the ban of plastic bags. And the group called Move the World Dance Activism did a beautiful dance with plastic bags at the La Brea Tar Pits for the Tar Pit Festival, as well as at the Broad Theater in Los Angeles. So Cecily's not shy of being someone who likes to make an impact and a difference. And she teaches courses, which I'm sure she'll talk about as well, in the Drawdown Project initiative. Which is henceforth the composting. And we have one of the composts in our backyard, but we keep this one right next to our sink in the kitchen. So having a small one, this is great. It actually comes with a lid that's a filter for, I think it's kind of has a nice coffee scent to it. And then we just take this and we bring it to the outside, we add water, and we're seeing some composting happening in there already. We're really excited for the next step, which is seeding and planting and using that soil, our compost, into soil for making our garden vegetables that are going to be coming up in the springtime.
Lovely, thank you. So one of the things that I would like to speak about today before Cecilie comes on is why is it that so many people do not compost? Why do you think so many people, you the panel, think people do not compost? Or why, when you were not composting, did you not compost? So going to Lisa next.
I am the perfect person to ask that question. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's something I keep thinking I'll look into, I'll explore, and I just don't get to it. And I know it's important. And I'm always struck by when I go to a home and I see somebody's doing that. And I think, oh, I should do that. And part of it is I don't have soil around me. I live on the ocean, which is soil, but not that kind of soil. And so I guess I just don't know how to integrate composting in my life. And I that's why I'm really excited about today, is to learn how I can move forward on it.
Thank you, Lisa. One of the things that I would like people to take away today is the fact that we all need to look at our city governments, and we need to go there and ask them, what do I need to do to compost? When I first moved to where I'm living now, this was one of the first things I did. I was living in Toronto, Canada, where composting was just, to me, I thought was just an everyday thing that people did everywhere. And when I came and I asked, where do I throw my compost? I was still, there's nothing. Actually, some people didn't understand what I was talking about when I used the word compost. And then I went to City Hall and they said, oh, it's something we would love to do. And we thought about it, but, and there were a lot of buts. And they said, this is a very busy place and, people don't have time. And I thought, Toronto is a very busy city. It's the economic hub of all of Canada. And they sure made it a priority. So I said this to them and they really were not happy when I said that. And I thought, and then I found somebody who was going around from restaurant to restaurant. Actually, I'm going to ask him to come on one day here and tell his story about composting. And he was going from restaurant to restaurant to try to get them to compost, and they were all resistant. Restaurants who have the greatest food waste possible outside of big supermarket chains. And most of them were not. And so we got together, he and I, and we said we should really go to City Hall again and give them incentives, find incentives for restaurants to compost. Even if it's not a moral incentive or an ethical incentive, if we can find a financial incentive, since this is the United States and financial incentives seem to go really big here. And so he and I try to come up with some financial incentives, and I don't usually think very well that way, so I was not the best person to come up with a financial incentive. So we thought maybe if we went to City Hall, that would work. And they said they would meet with us, and they kept putting it off until eventually we just let it go. And I have been trying to get composting here and at some place, even if I have to take it to some place myself, it's just not happening. And I don't understand. I happen to believe that these landfills are the most marvelous breeding grounds for illnesses and diseases. And one would think in an age where people are more aware of viruses and pandemics and whatnot, this might have been one of the first things that they would have thought is, ooh, those landfills. What are we going to do about those? And let's, do some things to make sure that we either can do away with them or at least we do not increase them. And yet it's not happening. Why do you think this is? Go again to page first.
Well, I believe it's a systematic systems situation. It wasn't set up and designed for a long term. I think even, if I may say so, there are even solutions that are being put in place for 15 years, 20 years now that I've heard about. I think that's not that long. So I do believe that, people have the mindset. I had the mindset. Sometimes I still have the mindset that the trash people are going to take it away. And I'll be the first to admit it. There are times that I have said that to myself, and even I think my family thinks this way too. So It's an individual, but it's also systematic. We haven't been set up that way. And if you think about right now, even with the recycling, with China not taking our recycling anymore, I think we're going to find out some information today with Cecilie, because she works with the city of Los Angeles. I think we're going to find out some info. She is an incredible resource. She's on the pulse. So we will find out some of these questions, but I think it boils down to, my neighbors are always putting trash in our trash bins, and they're always commenting on how little we have in our trash bins when we bring them out. They're so astonished. The largest probably is the recycling. But I think it's a mindset. We have to switch from, there's no way that everything we use is going to stay on this planet, be on this planet. And if we have children or we care about the future generations, it's going to be here. It's going to be here long after we're gone. It's not going anywhere. So
why do you think this is so, Lisa? Lisa, why do you think this is so? Why do you think people are really not that invested in composting?
I was just thinking about that and wondering the same thing. I think part of it is, I think there's a lack of awareness in our country about the positive impact we can make individually. I think we sometimes get so overwhelmed with, making this planet better, and we don't see our role in that. I can speak for myself on that. I feel like we have to find new ways to connect people to the benefits of it and make it personal. And like you said, Dory, I mean, our leaders, even their resistance. And unfortunately, I think sometimes monetary incentives work for people. And so giving people a little discount, or, making, especially like restaurants and things like that. It's sad that it seems so simple, and yet I think it's become overcomplicated. Like I'm going to be honest, for me, I've made it overcomplicated. So thank you for having the show.
You're welcome, Lisa. Vanessa, please.
I was just thinking now when Lisa was talking about the recent elections we had and how engaged people were, right? When Lisa was talking about people not thinking about their role or what part they can play in the recent elections, where people were galvanized. They were all voting, both sides, and they really went out there. And I just started thinking, what if we could have that same level of engagement, that it's up to every single one of us, not the government, let them take care of it, policies, big organizations out there. No, every single one of us, including those organizations I just named, but also every single one of us, it takes every one of us to do this. And you involve people in a feeling of doing something bigger than their regular lives and being part of a mission. And I think that's what gets people galvanized to take action. I think, speaking of elections, I think of Obama, and what Obama was able to do was allow people, invite people to think that they're part of a bigger mission and that they're important, they matter, they are contributing to something. So if somehow our messaging could be that everybody matters, everyone makes a difference in doing this, and together we can all solve this problem. If we come together and you're part of this big mission, you're important, you're a superhero, excuse me, you're a superhero fighting for, to protect the environment. And we really appeal to them emotionally and show them directly how what they're doing can have an impact. I think that could make a difference. Public service ads, campaigns, getting different voices out there and just bombarding people. I, as a psychotherapist, know that a lot of times when our neural pathways are rewired, that's when we start thinking differently. When we hear something enough times, we start believing it. So we need to get that message out and repeat it over and over so that people, it becomes a new pathway for them, where they don't kind of push it aside, or I'll get to it. Or like Lisa said, a lot of people may get too complicated. Oh my gosh, so many steps, all this stuff. Just start with a big old can of something. Like if you don't buy one specifically for compost, and get a big coffee container. Or I used to use when I had cats, the cat litter containers. I put all my compost in that and then take it into the garden, or leave it for a while and have potted plants in the house to use it. So many ways. I think that we just need to get people involved in the mission, and the repetition of it to get people motivated. And I have a comment from George McQuaid, who says, I believe predominantly it's a matter of values, of time, and being so distracted by trying to be successful and able to provide that we compromise a value of doing no harm. That's for sure. Like Lisa was saying, we get so caught up in our lives that we do forget to do these things that are so crucially important. And he says it's often the bigger picture of the community that has people revisit and adapt to serve others. Absolutely. I am in agreement. Good points, George. Thank you.
So I actually think that it has a lot to do with mainstream media. It has to do with what is a priority for them. Whatever they make a priority seems to become a priority in people's lives. And I think if this was something that was a priority in mainstream media, it would be in everybody else's lives as well. And so I think it has to do with indoctrination and education. And if people demand of mainstream media that they do this, then they would also do it. But it's not enough that people demand it, because if there are corporations giving money to mainstream media that do not believe in it, it will never happen either. So I really believe that it needs to be a movement from the ground up of people coming together and demanding that the value system change. That the value is not about how much money a broadcast network can make, but what are they doing that serves the community at large? And to say that we're caught up in our lives, to me, our lives are exactly about composting and what we eat and what we do with the waste. That ought to be what our lives are. Because interestingly, people do find time to go to see movies or to watch movies at home and to do go to sporting events and things that have no bearing whatsoever on the value of their lives. But there's for entertainment. So it's not that people are so caught up, I think, that in other things that they are caught up in other things, but these things have very little value in what benefits them and the rest of society and the planet as a whole. And I think because people are so indoctrinated in thinking that entertainment is what's tantamount and what's important to live a life on Earth. I mean, people always talking about fun. Are you having fun yet? Are you happy? Or wishing people happy Sunday, happy Monday, happy Friday? Why all this focus on happiness? Why not an involved Friday? A committed person on Sunday? Why not change the focus and the value system of what we do and who we are and how we think? And it's interesting because I think most of us, our brain cells are so undernourished and so underutilized that we cannot go beyond a certain extent of thinking. It just is too far. That's why people say they get exhausted from thinking about it. They don't even want to think about it. It's too much for them. I think it starts really with changing the value system of society. I was speaking with somebody this morning who had seen my show this Sunday on sugar and how sugars have become the most addicted. I'm talking about processed, bleached sugar from the same sugar cane, which is actually extremely nutritious, from the same plant. And how people have become so addicted to it that they cannot even think without it or live without it anymore. And that's how great an addiction is. And she was saying, but it starts with children. We feed it to children and they become addicted. And I learned recently when I was, we could still do workshops and I was doing a live workshop. This mother was in the audience and she had a baby bottle, was feeding her baby. And somebody sitting close to her put their hand up and said, I have to say this. I'm sorry. I don't care if she's upset with me, but this mother is here in that baby bottle feeding her child Coca-Cola in the baby bottle. Now, I thought it was a joke because I didn't think anybody would ever do something like that. I thought it was a joke. So I just kept on with my talk. And then she got up, the lady next to her, and the same lady who spoke before, both of them got up and said, "We're serious. Ask her to show you what she's doing." Now, I do not like to pinpoint people and to, you know, pull people out of the audience and stand out. But I said, "No, I don't believe you. This is, you're just joking." They said, "No." And the lady who was feeding said, "Of course I am. I'm feeding because this is the only way she's going to shut up and keep quiet during this whole talk, is if I give her Coca-Cola. This is what she wants, is what she loved." And I said, "But who gave it to her first? How did she know she loved it? And how did you find out that she would be quiet if you gave that to her? Because that's what she does at home to shut her up." And then I found out, though, from other people in the audience that this was not unusual. And I was shocked to the core. And this is why we have the problem that we do. This lady sees Coca-Cola all the time. Every time she turns on her television, every time she turns on the internet, she sees ads for it and she loves it. She's gotten addicted to it already, so she decided to use it herself. And this is the issue, or the value system. Children, babies, are meant to shut up, and we'll do whatever we need to make them shut up, whether it's to put them in front of a video game that is extremely violent and teach them violence and teach them how to practice violence and teach them how to numb their own feelings. And then when the feelings are numb enough, instead of the brain cells growing, we give them sugars and non-nutritious foods, things that are not food, that resemble food, and then they get addicted to that, and then we wonder why there's so much mental illness. And then we end up, I found out yesterday that a dear friend of mine, one of her employees, her former employees, because they had to shut down because they have a martial arts center, the premier martial arts person, who was the most beautiful, stunning young man, he died of an overdose. And she called up yesterday and she was just distraught and she was so upset. And she said to me, "You said this was going to happen if we did not intervene." You know, because everybody kept saying, "Oh, he'll grow out of it. He will stop." And I said, no, people don't grow out of addictions. I see Sarah Siegel is saying it's addiction. Yes, we're addicted. This is a society of addictions. And I think this is why composting is not at the list of anybody's priorities. Because feeding our addictions always come first. And the more we feed our addictions, is the more brain dead we get, and the more chemically deprived we are of real nutrients. Because our body's a chemical factory and it needs certain chemicals in which to survive, in which to grow, in which to expand. And so people are dumb, numb, tired, exhausted, and turned off all the time. And then we come on with a program like this and we say people need to compost, but who cares when the brain cells are dead and people can't barely get out of bed in the morning without feeding their addictions first? And that's their premier thought all day. So I know that there are a lot of things coming. There are a lot of comments. Vanessa, I'm going to go to you first for the comments from the audience, please.
Sure. Yes, thank you, Sarah, for watching. She is saying it's an addiction for sure. And that's what's so powerful, that if you don't even know it's an addiction, you don't even know to do anything about it. Parents and government enable the sugar addiction for sure. And she's pointing out that Jane Velez Mitchell wrote a book called Addict Nation. So Jane talks about her process of healing from addiction. She was an addict as well of alcohol. Teacher, and Sarah says teachers, and I know Sarah was a teacher. She says teachers are trained to give students candy. That I didn't know. Wow, that's pretty outrageous if teachers are trained to give students candy. It's like we have a certain behavior in these artificial schools that make us sit there as children for all these hours, and we have to sit still, which is a very artificial thing anyway. I had a really hard time because I was a high energy kid. I wanted to run around and do things and be active, but we're forcing kids into these unnatural positions, and then to force their compliance, we give them candy, which is going to make them hyper and all hopped up and go all over the place with this chemical, and then it'll sedate them and they'll be all sleepy and they'll just sit there passively in school. What an unhealthy environment. And Sarah says she's hosting a watch party. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah is a very, very supportive viewer, and I'm really grateful for her. And she says she only gave healthy snacks, and the other teachers and principal rebelled. I bet, because like the Coca-Cola, the kids just want what they want and what usually works, and they're going to whine and complain because that's what their chemically induced states are craving. And so then parents and teachers give in and give it to them. So good for you for being the maverick who would give them the healthy snacks. Thank you for that, Sarah.
Yes, Sarah, thank you. Big thank you, Sarah, because we need more responsible people like you. It's really shocking to me that we condone this kind of behavior, and we do not. I personally see this child abuse. I mean, the children don't stand a chance. You're depriving them from the very beginning of the very nutrients they need, and you're making them chemically dependent on a substance, which means when they get older, they need a stronger one and a stronger one and a stronger one. And then we wonder why people are on the streets from chemical dependencies. Paige, you are next.
I am a mom, and I will say I second everything Sarah was saying. So when my son was in first grade, they didn't do so much of this in kindergarten, but I definitely saw in first grade on the schoolyard, they were given candy if they behaved certain ways. And if the boys, anybody ran in certain areas, and it was pretty much, if they kept to one small area of not running, everything else was against the rules. So you'd look, I'd come at the recess time, or I'd drive by because it was right at the street in a traditional school, and all these boys would be on the bench, sitting on the bench during recess. And so I went to the school and I said, why are all those boys sitting on the bench? Oh, well, they broke the no running rule. I said, well, where are they to be running? This is where they need to run, on this square. That's it. And if they run, then they can't control them. There aren't enough parents. And so they have to be benched so they don't break the rules. Now, these kids were expected. These were 6-year-olds expected to sit for the next chunk of time when they were sitting on a bench for running. Why not make the area bigger? There were so many things. Finally, I realized I was bumping up against a system that was not going to work for the way I think. So we homeschooled. But what I want to say is the candy was just given out as a reward system. Oh, like if you spelled a word correctly, you'd get candy. If you multiplied or divided or added correctly, candy. It was norm. So I wonder if that has changed. This was, 18 years ago, 17 years ago. But I wanted to say something else because I think I'm kind of talking about all of it. I was thinking about when a First Nations gentleman was in a commercial when I was younger. And you all may remember this, but I don't know, maybe not. I'm not sure where you lived at the time, but it was here in America on the United States national stations, broadcasting stations. And he basically was standing there and someone threw either a can, I think it was a can, out their window, and it landed right by this First Nations gentleman. And the pan was him crying, okay? That ad was shown so many times, and I'll tell you what, that did a lot for littering. That did a lot. And then they put in the laws of being charged a fine if you were caught littering. But there was something about the mindset that you felt I know I connected, and I was a young person at the time. I connected to that First Nations person's tear, that he was so sad that someone would throw a can out and not take care of the land. So that, I think, bring that back. If someone were willing, or just replay that commercial. We need to hold people accountable for their trash, their litter. It's everywhere now. You drive the streets. I drove the streets I haven't been on. I could not believe the amount of other people's trash that becomes our trash, because it's all of our planet. We all live here. So it's affecting all of us. So I was shocked to see the amount of trash on the streets yesterday. I don't know what is going on, but meanwhile, there's nowhere to put it. So I contribute too. So it's a matter of taking personal stock on what I use, how I use it, how I reuse it, how I repurpose it, before ever it goes into somewhere that's not here in my space, but it's going to be in someone else's space.
Yes, I agree with you. We need to have that ad back on. That's what I was saying. If we have it on media has such a power hold over most people's lives. And that's the sort of thing we need. Lisa, you're up next.
Well, I agree. Media has such a powerful influence, and that ad, I remember it. It was deeply moving, and it made me aware of the impact of littering. And like Doree talked about, I think so much of it is, we tend to go for immediate gratification in our society, sugar, our phone. I know it's good for it pulls in our brain chemistry, and it's hard for us sometimes to see outside of, our impulses and our needs. I was just kind of perusing an article on why people don't compost. I just read a 2018 survey that said 72% of Americans out of 2,000 polled don't compost, and their reasons why. They don't know why it matters. That's a big thing. The impact that act will make. So I think driving that home, I don't know what can and can't be composted. I think that sometimes I run into that with recycling. I just had a discussion with my boyfriend the other day, like, no, you can't recycle that. And he's like, yes, you can. And it turns out, no, you can't. I don't know how, or it's too inconvenient. I'm not sure the relevant laws. Different states have different laws about composting. So I think it's really important that, we all learn from this and just kind of explore it. I'm really motivated listening to each of you. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Vanessa, your comments, but also I know we have some more viewer comments as well. And I think you'll be the last person up because soon our guest will be on. So when you finish with the viewers' comments, just go ahead with your own, please, and then we will go straight to our guest when she comes on.
Got it. Thank you. I can't wait to hear her. George McQuaid says, cool. I saw some presentations on the neuroscience of addiction. It was fascinating to see how our brains operate differently in addiction. Yeah, there's a very strong chemical pathway that happens with addiction. That's why it's so incredibly hard to free yourself from it. And Sarah says schools have budgets for candy. It's outrageous. I'm stunned. Think about Valentine's Day. It's about sugar. Absolutely, it is. I remember when I used to teach English to Chinese foreign students who had just recently arrived, and I teach them English. And these are kids who were learning English after a day of school. They're hyper, they're restless, they want to do things. So what I did was I decided to use that energy, and we would play silly games. Like for the young ones, we played Duck, Duck, Goose, but with English words, so they could run around and have fun and play and make it playful. We would learn different vocabulary words through games. Sometimes they would, and I got permission for this, but when they felt particularly hyper, I would ask them to get on the floor and do some push-ups or jumping jacks or sit-ups or something. And it got to the point where they all started asking, can I do push-ups? Can I do sit-ups? They were so desperate to move and have that energy. And those were great ways of keeping them relaxed and open to learning in a playful and fun way. And so there's so many alternatives to sugar. And I just want to say, from watching Dorit's show on Sunday, I took some dried mangoes I have, which I didn't feel very moist or good quality. And I soaked them in water. And I've been using the syrup from the water as sweetener for my oatmeal. Usually I use date sugar, but I'm using this as a difference for fun. And the mango became so thick and pulpy. It was all of a sudden much more delicious than it had been. So I think that the awareness, people agitating for change, I think, with mainstream media, Dorit, you make a good point. If people can agitate enough that mainstream media will pay attention to it, and vice versa, the more we agitate and demand this and educate people about it, the more mainstream media will pick it up and talk about it. And then the more mainstream media talks about it, more and more people will learn about it. So I think it takes a core group of organized people to get the attention of mainstream media, who will then disperse it widely so many more of us will do it. And I do think if we could get public officials, lobby them, get them to talk about it as well, we could really make a difference, both about sugar addictions, composting, waste, the general ways that we honor and treat our temples and our greater temple of this planet.
And I think they're all the same issue, just different aspects of it. It's the same thing, being unconscious, living life unconsciously, living our lives in a fantasy land, living our lives without living it actually, in a stupor all the time, exhausted all the time. And I know that we have some more comments. Vanessa?
Yes, we just got a comment from Gabe Oria, who says, Sarah Siegel rocks. Thank you, Sarah. And I echo that. Sarah, thank you so much. You're always so supportive and have such great, insightful comments. And I'm blown away by what you told me about the school system that I did not know. So thank you. And Gabe, I'm with you. Thanks for watching.
Yes, Sarah, big shout out to Sarah Siegel. And thank you so very much. Yes, Paige, go ahead, please. I think you're muted, Paige. You're muted. You need to unmute.
Yes, I'm helping our guest. Do you want to take it to Lisa real quick?
Oh, she's on the guest.
Lisa,
she's helping the guest come on, Dorit.
Yes, thank you. Okay.
So thank you to everybody that's weighed in. I mean, this is such a great conversation. Back to you, Dorit.
Okay, so one of the things that I would like to speak about right now is the fact that we're not only in a place where we can actually change, because we're able to, at this moment in time, look at our lives and say, why is it that most things that we normally do on a daily basis or we take for granted are now not available to us? It's because I think we are being forced to look at our lives, to reassess where our priorities are, and to bring a whole new world into being. And that is totally possible. And we've been given this amazing opportunity to do so. So instead of griping and grieving, and I know there are a lot of people who are ill. I know a lot of people don't have money, and people are being actually evicted, which again shows the values of the society in which we live. It's all about values. And I think we need to change the values and start making sure that the value system is about putting people first over profit, and also making sure that each and every individual matters. And we're realizing that each and every one of us is critical to the well-being of the next one, that we're all in this together, we're not separate, and that we're actually all members of the same hand. This is a hand. My hand doesn't exist without this little finger. As you all know, when you've hurt your little finger, you hurt your thumb. All of a sudden, your hand is not capable anymore of doing all the things you wanted it to do. And so when one member is down, one member is afflicted, it afflicts all of us. When every member thrives, we all thrive, just as the entire hand will thrive. So I think it's important that we all remember this and that we all act accordingly and be more mindful of our own part in everything we do each day. To say that I don't know what composting benefits are, all people need to do if they're really interested is look online, just like Lisa just did. She looked online. So to say I don't know is really, I think, not the truth. I'm not interested enough to find out. I think that is really the response. Yes, Paige, we're coming to you now.
I was just holding up my compost because I think Cecilie is coming on soon. So I just am so proud because this is really something new. And I've been vegan for 5 years, and I made that conscious choice after watching Cowspiracy and hearing the facts, the water usage, and the amount of resources used to put animals on people's plates, including my own at the time. So I just want to say that whoever's out there, wherever you're at on the journey, start somewhere. And the number one and number two in the drawdown project are plant-based eating and composting is the second in the number of 100 ways of which we can draw down carbon and help with our climate crisis. So I feel like I'm doing something right when I put everything in here. I can level it up and repurpose things. I know I can do that's my next level. But I just want to say, look, I'm not sitting here all righteous like I've been doing this for my 54 years of my life. No. In fact, I remember littering when I was a teenager. I remember leaving beer bottles places, underage drinking and leaving beer bottles, and feeling super guilty about that now. So I always pick up other people's trash. But I want to say that your trash is my trash is yours. And this land is our land, but the trash is all of ours.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely. There's no such thing as my trash and your trash. It's all of us. It's our trash. So our guest is here, but she's not on camera yet. And so as soon as she comes on, we will tune into her. In the meantime, I would ask each person on the panel right now, what are you willing to do to change the present state of devaluing ourselves to the point where we ourselves believe that trash is normal and we act as if we too are, and I hear people calling each other trash, by the way, I do, where that has become the norm. So starting with you, Vanessa.
Yeah, one thing I've committed to, and I found when I was traveling, I was sliding in this because of convenience, of difficulty finding things, all the excuses. So I found that I was buying more packaged things, and I usually avoid all packaging, packaged goods. So I think it's really being not so much depriving and being strict, but the idea of honoring myself and the planet by avoiding plastics and packaging and getting those real whole foods, which are what the body craves and feels better with. So really, I need to, for example, microgreens. I've been eating a lot of microgreens, but I haven't yet bought the seeds. I need to buy the seeds so that I'm not buying packaging. It's not a processed food, but it's still in plastic. And so it's creating more trash. And so it's really thinking of that, honoring at all times of, I don't want to create trash because that plastic is not going to break down. Even when China was taking our recycling, it used a very small percentage to recreate things. We need to just not have that demand for packaging. So I really think going more into the growing things ourselves, even if it's in little pots on our counters. And that to me is a commitment that I need to strengthen in myself because I produce very, very little trash. Most of the trash is junk mail, which I haven't found a way of getting rid of. And some of the packaging that fruits and vegetables come in, I try to always go to farmers markets where it actually is often cheaper, or go into the stores where I can just buy individual fruits, apples, oranges, whatever, instead of the big ones. And I should do what my friend JP does, which is bring my own containers to the farmer's market for frozen blueberries, because I still do buy frozen blueberries, and I need to change that. And Maria Ashcroft says education is key in keeping things simple. I agree.
Hi.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Can you
And
guys hear me?
welcome to our guest. Welcome to our guest.
Yeah.
Cecilie
some reason,
Stuart is
okay.
here. So,
Just bring
Cecilie,
my own
you're
containers to the
take it
farmer's
away.
market for frozen blueberries, because I still do buy frozen blueberries.
Hi,
And
everyone.
I need to change that. And Maria Ashcroft
Can you guys-
says education is key in keeping things simple.
Great.
I agree.
Hi.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cecily from Full
Perfect.
Circle
Thank you so much.
Compost.
And welcome to our guest.
Hey, Cecily, I think you have to take your other programming off.
Cecily,
So you're just hearing this. We can hear your audio from your Facebook.
Hi, everyone. Great. Can you guys hear me now?
yes, this is fine now, Cecily. Welcome.
Hi. So sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm here from Full Circle Compost and Move the World. We are a nonprofit in Los Angeles that is really committed to drawdown. And I don't know if you guys know what drawdown is, but Project Drawdown is an international organization, and drawdown.org, if you check it out, is a really neat site. It's really about scientifically designed solutions to reverse global warming. And I think Paige mentioned just a short time ago that all of the solutions that Drawdown presents, composting and plant-rich diet, are the top two things that individuals can do on a daily basis to really reduce our CO2 level. And that, bringing down the CO2, carbon sequestration, we call it, is how we're going to reverse global warming. So I don't know if Dorit has any of my slides, but basically what I wanted to share with you guys today is that composting is really an easy thing to do. It's basically where we take our food scraps and we put it into a bin and we let it create this wonderful, warm place for the microbial life to live, and it breaks down our food. So instead of throwing it into the landfill, which breaks down, starts to warm up the plastic and all of the things that we throw away, creating tons of methane. And methane is 34% more intensely warming than CO2, which there's tons of that in our atmosphere. It really creates a massive problem in our society because there's too much CO2 up there, is really the global warming issue. But we can bring it back down. And really, this is the work that we're doing with my group called Move the World. And we have a project called Full Circle Compost, where we build, we install, and we service and teach people how to compost. One of the things that I've found mostly is that people really want to do it. I'm sure all of you amazing people on this program are very aware. You understand plant-based diet. You really are striving to achieve your own personal goals, which is amazing. And yet we all need support. That is what Full Circle Compost is about being successful in our composting. Because what I've experienced is that a lot of people have tried it and maybe been unsuccessful, or are really committed to it, but don't know quite how to. So let me talk just really quickly how to compost. All right. So you want to kind of, here's the nuts and bolts of it. It takes these key components. You want to have 50% brown and 50% green. Okay. So your green waste is your food waste. It's also your grass clippings. And that's your nitrogen component to the compost. And then you have your carbon, which is your brown. So you go 50-50 on that. Browns are like hay and leaf matter. Those things kind of calm the compost down, and the nitrogen-rich materials, your food waste, that really beefs it up. So you do 50-50 on that. And then you need your oxygen, which means you're stirring your compost, you're moving it around, you're creating an oxygen-rich environment for the microbial life and the fungus and all those little critters that are going to break down your food. And then lastly, you need your water, right? Your H2O. So you got to keep it moist. In Southern Cal, it is really easy for our compost to dry out. That's kind of one of the number one issues in composting in Southern California. We just don't have the rain. So you just really have to keep your compost moist. That is something that you really want to focus on. That's why people are generally unsuccessful with composting. Either they don't have enough oxygen in there, they're not like stirring it and getting that oxygen-rich environment happening, or it dries out. So those are the two like little tidbits I would give you guys to be successful. Why are we composting? I kind of mentioned in the beginning that it is the number one way we can individually and collectively in our communities really help assist in moving ourselves to a place of resiliency, of regeneration in our soils. Soil is so critical to carbon sequestration or drawing our carbon back home. We call it a land sink. So it's a place where the carbon needs to come out of the atmosphere and down into the soil again, where it once was. We've pulled so much of the carbon out of the atmosphere, out of the soil through our fossil fuel extraction, and we need to bring that carbon back home. That's why other things in regenerative agriculture that are so important are like cover cropping, right? So you try not to keep any soil bare, because if it's covered with plants, they're pulling that CO2 out of the atmosphere and putting it back into the soil. That's what composting does. If you need support, if you need a compost bin, reach out to Full Circle Compost on Facebook. That's our main place where you can reach us. We can, Paige, I don't know if you have a photo up there of your compost bin, but we installed Paige's in, Eco Private Eye, I mean. We installed hers in June, and she's doing brilliantly. So we really, that was a success story for us. Oh, there she is. That's what her compost looks like right now. Beautiful, rich soil. It smells like, it smells like a forest when all that food has gone back and been eaten up by those little microbes. And then all that carbon rich nutrition is now in that soil. The next thing you'll want to do is take it out into your garden, put it on the base of your trees, your plants, to put a nice thin layer of it on your garden if you're growing. And I just do encourage everyone, if you are a composter already, make sure you're using that soil right where you live. One of the things that LA County is going to be doing soon in 2022 is probably picking up your food waste from your, like your trash and your recycling is now. I have a little beef with that. I know it's great for us, regionally. I have a little beef with it, taking all those resources out and distributing them far away from. It's best if you can compost at home, because you can use the soil at home. It reduces, our fuel consumption to travel all that food waste all over the city. But if that's the only way you can compost, that's going to be fine. So LA County is really doing great. Like our LA County plan is committed to 75% of the food waste being composted by 2025. So we're well on our way. We're going to be doing it, but please do it at home when you can, or do it in your communities. Yay. Full Circle Compost, join us. Let us know if we can help you. We'll come out to your place, your site. We'll install it. We'll make sure it's placed in the right position on your land, and we'll help you get started. So Full Circle Compost on Facebook is how you can reach us, or movetheworldnow.org. You can reach us there too.
Cecilie, thank you so much. I know that Vanessa, you probably have quite a few comments. I'll go to you for the comments.
Yes, well, some of the comments were actually for me posting. I was just reiterating what Cecilie was saying about the way to do it. The 50% brown, 50% green, the water, oxygen by stirring it. Paige Parsons Roach, whom you may have heard of, she's actually famous as the Eco Private Eye. She says, what do you suggest we do with our compost if we don't have a big bin? And she also says soil is key. So Cecilie,
if you can bring your compost to a community compost site, I would do that first. One of the things that Full Circle Compost has been successful at is establishing them at schools, because everyone's, except for the pandemic, most everyone was traveling to schools in their area. And so that's a really great place to establish a community compost. If that's not available to you, you can do something as simply as bury it. There's a very simple, if you go to Kiss the Ground, I mean, they have so many video resources that you can learn from them. One of the things they say is you can literally just bury your compost. It will break down. Your food waste will break down into compost. If that doesn't feel right, or you don't have the space for it, you can potentially, you got to check with your waste hauler, but you can potentially freeze it in the freezer and then put it out with the green waste. And if that isn't allowed in your area, my recommendation is that you start a compost. It's really not that hard, and you can do a small one. You can also do a worm bin. Worms eat all only plant matter, and no orange peels, but that's a really efficient way, and you can make them for very inexpensively. So if you need personal support, an organization like ours is good, but if you can do it yourself, all the better. We just want people to be successful, and we just want people to do it. So look at your resources and reach out to either Full Circle Compost, or reach out to Kiss the Ground, or Google resources in your area.
And Kiss the Ground also has a newsletter that gives a tremendous amount of resources and support as well. Do you have a newsletter too, Cecilie?
We do. We just started. It's a Zero Waste Topanga, because that's where we're located in. And I see Eco Private Eye, aka Paige, is showcasing her bin.
I am. So this is created by Full Circle Compost, and this is all repurposed wood. They came and built it. They put the whole thing together. We started out with this bin, which you can tell it's gathering some spider webs or whatever, but this is a decent one. We roll it around and whatnot, but we really liked supporting the Full Circle. And I also had this thought, so everything's going on in there. We got a shovel right here that we use, and we just take a hose, we put some water in there. And I would love to get my neighbors on board with just coming through the side of our yard and then just putting their compost in here. So we got this installed last summer, the beginning of summer, right, Cecilie? I believe so. Yeah. During the pandemic, we were able to make it work. And we had done this course that Cecilie teaches, the drawdown course. She teaches this all over online now. Anybody all over the world can do it, right, Cecilie? My husband and I took this course and learned a lot of great things. So,
Paige, before you leave, could you go back, please? And
sure.
do a close-up with the camera of the bins, please. Thank you.
Get very close
Thanks
up so you
much.
can see the bin.
I'd love to just highlight there. So we make these compost bins out of repurposed pallets. They're chemical free, they're recycled, and then we make them rodent free by putting that 19-inch mesh in there. And we just make it so it's really functional and easy. And then there's no bottom on it, so you can move it after you've had a whole cycle. You can lift it up, sift the soil, and use it. So it's pretty efficient. It works really well. And I will also say that coffee is another activator for compost. So if you have a lot of coffee grounds in your area, you can go to local coffee shops. It's another way for you to be a community supporter. Using those grounds in compost really makes a difference.
Paige, can you show the drum as well, the circular drum, please?
What is it?
Can you show a close-up of the circular drum as well, please?
I don't know what that is.
Your other compost bin.
Oh, sorry. Okay, this one.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so one of the other things you can do is just adopt another compost bin that somebody is not using. I have done that myself. And, if you can't afford to start a new one, use one that you have. The most important thing is that you're active. There's kind of step-by-step, you start small and then work your way up.
Lisa, I might have a compost for you. Or anybody out there, whoever wants to come get it in Westlake Village, reach out. You can have it. I'll be happy to donate that spinny one.
Perfect. Let's upcycle all of our old compost bins and not throw them in the landfill.
Yes. So, Cecilie, what started you in on this? Can you tell your story, please? Because you were a dancer at New York City Ballet, no less. You studied New York City Ballet. I was at Martha Graham, I think, when you were studying at New York City Ballet.
Wow.
And we seem to have taken very similar paths.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Well, I think that, I had a full career in film and television, and I still work in film and television from time to time, a choreographer. And last year I was even a performer again, which was a highlight. There's a new movie coming out called The Prom with Meryl Streep. And I danced in it. It was so exciting. Anyway, I think that what that tells is that your skills that you start when you're very young, you have them your whole life. And I teach youth to be eco activists, and I teach drawdown now, which is just a way to become a resilient person. I think it's all of our personal responsibilities to become stewards of the land. It's something we all have to do regardless of what other amazing passions we have, whether we're artists, activists, performers, and we still need to be stewards of our land. So I began teaching the dance program at Manzanita School, and it's a school in the Santa Monica Mountains in Topanga, and it's really a science land-based school. So they really teach land stewardship there, and I began.
And this is in California.
Yes, that's in California. And it's an amazing school. And I just grew my skills while being there, teaching dance and bringing the dance program there. And I became a land stewardship mentor as well. So, and then I've been to Santa Monica College, which I've gotten some certifications, began teaching drawdown education. And I just really, I'm also a partner with a Pachamama Alliance, which is a nonprofit that really uses indigenous wisdom in our modern society. And I've partnered with them, and that's how I began to teach the Drawdown 5-session free workshop, which I invite all of your guests to participate in. I offer them. You can reach out to me at movetheworldnow.org, and we're going to start up a new class in February. It's neat right now during the pandemic because I can teach those all over the world. Just finished a class where I had students from New Zealand. We really learn about the drawdown solutions to create, be part of the solution to reversing global warming, how we can apply those in our lives and practice them. And really, I want to have one quote for you that I was listening to a permaculture farm presentation today. And I think this is really what is at the heart of my inspiration. We can't keep living by the rules for a time that we are no longer living in. That is what is driving me in my activity right now to become a great steward of the planet, because I feel that we really can't keep living by the same rules. We need to reinvent ourselves, and it starts by acting locally and starting small and acting together.
And Cecilie, why the name Drawdown?
Drawdown really means the point at which the CO2 levels peak in the atmosphere and then begin to fall or draw down back to Earth. So we are on a steady ascendancy in our generating our greenhouse gases at this point. But it does exist the possibility that we can really reverse that course in the next 30 years. It's critical that we do. So the goal is to achieve these solutions, which are all science-based. They're all things we're doing now, but we need to do them at a scale that really shifts our activities on a daily basis in our industries, in our culture, around the world, so that we are living inside the new green economy. And that's why I really love teaching young people, because it's really the future of their employment, the new green economy, but it starts now. So those of us who are composting, those of us who are plant-based diet, we're really beginning to live the solutions, and that is our future. That's how we're going to turn this around.
I agree with that phrase, live the solutions. That's actually my mantra. So thank you for using that phrase, because that's critically important. So Vanessa, do we have any comments from the audience? And if not, then I'm just going to go to each of you for 30 seconds for a last minute closing, please.
We just have Paige saying community composting, and Kiss the Ground Film has resources for composting. So I guess my last 30 seconds would be, it's within our power and resources to be able to make a difference and to make a change. Let's all spread the word about composting and how we can do it, and the basic tips, and the website for Full Circle Compost, which is really invaluable. We can all do it. And I love the idea of community gardens or freezing it, putting it in your green bin. It's very doable, especially with all the waste that we produce, and especially around the holidays, where I bet people are going to be eating more and wasting more because they're confined and in COVID. And I know that there's a funny meme going around that has a fridge that says, "What do you want now?" So.
And Paige, what is our mantra for our Zero Food Waste Challenge?
Yes, it is to eat less and compost more. I just want to say I'm a proud supporter of Move the World. I was on the board for many years, and it's so great to bring both those worlds together. And I wanted to say that we can fight climate change with diet change. This is put out by Factory Farming Awareness Coalition. This is an incredible film. Jane Velez Mitchell, shout out to Jane for Countdown to Year Zero, which talks about it's not too late to save the planet. We all know, many of us knew Greta Thunberg, still know her. She has a film out about hers, great little documentary. Also that she's vegan for a reason, for our planet. And then I am going to give a shout out to you, Cecilie, because you are an incredible educator. And this was a very eye-opening experience to take on this workshop that you led. And I'm so proud to be a part of this Creating Resiliency Club that we have here, our message.
And hopefully Cecilie will join us. And now Lisa.
I just love what you shared, Cecilie, and in each of you. Just again, it always goes back to how we're all connected and how important it is to really recognize that we're not in a little bubble. everything is completely connected. And so being a good steward of the land is important. So thank you.
Wonderful. So, Paige?
Just thank you so much for this opportunity to read. I so appreciate you. And every time I eat something raw, I think of you and I think, okay, I'm going to do better next time. So I think that's the other message, is to bring on better in our lives, to just continue to grow in different ways. So whether it's starting your compost next to your, with your food scraps, perhaps it's eating more raw, it's using less plastics, it's reducing, it's repurposing something rather than throwing it away, which we know goes no away. There's no magical away. So just thank you so much, everyone, for participating in this conversation with us.
So I'd like to close with solutions. And I think one of the solutions to make this something that is very popular is to have trips to land. I know that this sounds bizarre, but to have trips to these places where we throw these things so people could see there's no way. And literally every single person in the community has to go. And as an incentive, maybe they get $10 for going, or they stop by a plant-based restaurant and they get a meal to see what a plant-based restaurant who composts. That plant-based restaurant has to compost. And then after they finish with the food, they take whatever's left on their plate and they take it to be composted at the restaurant. And then they see the connection between what they've just done and the landfill they just left behind. And I think the trips like this and much more things that connect to people on a daily level, than on a deep level, is really what we need. Things that make the people really relate because they've experienced it for themselves. And that we pressure mainstream media to become more realistic about what's important and what's valuable in our lives, and stop promoting corporations and agendas that have nothing to do with our lives. So that's how we create resilience, in my opinion. Cecilie, many thanks. Thank you so much, Paige, for bringing on Cecilie. Thank you, Vanessa, and to Lisa. Lisa, thanks for creating that poster. And to everyone watching today, thank you for your time and your attention. Please spread this far and wide, because there's so many people who know that their lives, the lives they're living, is a life of disconnection. And we wish, with this Creating Resiliency webinars, to remind people that they do matter and that their value is of supreme importance, because in order to create resiliency, we need each and every single person. So thank you all, everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Cecilie.